For Israel, the takeover of Aleppo is an unintended consequence. Israel does not necessarily want Assad removed from power because doing so would create a strategic vacuum that Sunni jihadists would fill. Sure, from the Israeli point of view, Iran is a threat, but Sunni insurgents would be a challenge all the same. Israel's only potential ally is the SDF. The SDF controls the northeast of Syria and enjoys military support from the United States. With American support, Israel could create a diagonal corridor that cuts through Syria's eastern border and links up with SDF territory. An Israeli corridor linking to the SDF would completely destroy relations with Turkey since the SDF is a threat to them. As strategic as an Israeli corridor would be, it may not be worth destroying ties with Turkey, with whom relations will likely be restored in a decade. For reference, the SDF is an offshoot of the PKK, which is recognized globally as a terrorist organization, including by the United States and the European Union. The PKK is a Kurdish separatist group that has carried out attacks on civilian targets in Turkey, Iran, Iraq and elsewhere. Western media frequently label the SDF and its military branch, the YPG, as a Kurdish group, but that is demeaning towards Kurds. Nearly half of Syria's Kurdish population, not to mention minorities such as Assyrians and Yazidis, live in exile because of SDF and YPG practices such as forced conscription, child kidnappings, extremist curriculum, and so on.
As you know, sometimes it's of necessity, who's available. The one that I think is most discussed and most misunderstood is the evolution with our counterpart in Syria, the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, interestingly, they came about that name because at one point in time, and I dealt with them directly, I was in on the formative stage of the relationship with these guys. They formally called themselves the YPG, who the Turks would say equated to the PKK. You're dealing with a terrorist enemy of mine. How can you do that, ally? So we literally played back to them that, hey, you got to change your brand. What do you want to call yourself besides the YPG? And with about a day's notice, they declared that they were the Syrian Democratic Forces. I thought it was a stroke of brilliance to put democracy in there somewhere.
Turkey does not directly control the main group that took Aleppo, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS for short. This coalition of jihadist fighters split away from al-Qaeda and now focuses on toppling Assad. HTS is a designated terrorist organization by the international community, including the United States, the European Union, Turkey, Russia, Iran, etc. For years, Turkey has been trying to negotiate the integration of HTS into the SNA, which is the other rebel group in the north, but it hasn't worked. So Turkey instead has been left to tolerate HTS because any operation against them by any party would create a refugee wave headed into Turkey. However, with the HTS capture of Aleppo, the group now has the resources to go its separate path, completely independent of Turkey. Syrian National Army or SNA. This is the military arm of the Syrian interim government, the original opposition, the one that started it all. The SNA's green-white-black flag is the hallmark of the Syrian opposition. In the recent capture of Aleppo, the SNA teamed up with HTS, but was then kicked out of some areas. Since then, tensions between HTS and the SNA have flared up. HTS rebels have little international backing and Russia can drive them into a diplomatic corner. HTS is highly factional, like a conglomerate of extremists that in itself limits their ability to govern Syria.